Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, may I start by apologising for the delay in starting tonight's planning application committee. We've been experiencing some technological difficulties. We haven't been able to get the live stream working, so we are now recording, and then this will be sort of broadcast, hopefully at some point in the not too distant future. Should we manage to get the live stream working, however, we will get the live stream up and running. So I apologise to anyone, particularly who's at home and has been trying to tune in. Hopefully you will sort of see this recording slightly later on. Okay, item number 1 then is housekeeping. So just to ask to ensure that you are all signed in on the sheets provided at the front for the fire register. A fire drill is not expected tonight, so if the alarm does sound, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Lloyds Bank building on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door by which you entered the room or by the fire exits, which are clearly indicated by the standard green fire exit signs. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of the staff. The meeting is, well, I say it should be live streamed, it's being recorded at the moment, and if we can get the live stream, we will pick that up partway through the meeting. Please can I ask that you turn your mobile phones off, and if you can't turn them off, please can you turn them on to silent. Item number 2, apologies. I have one apology from Councillor Wilson, who's been substituted tonight by Councillor Guttridge. So thank you, Councillor Guttridge, for joining us this evening. Item 3 is the minutes. I have 2 sets of minutes. The first one, which had the wrong date on it, as presented to us at the last meeting, should have read 30th of August. That has now been amended. Are members happy for me to sign that off now? Yeah. Okay, so I shall sign that off now. Okay, and then we've also got the minutes for the last meeting. Has anyone picked up any issues they would like or think we should amend? So are members happy for me to sign those minutes? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, moving on then to item number 4, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations they wish to make which are not already included on the schedule? Councillor Hartshorn.
It has been submitted and hopefully it will be retrospectively added into the minutes for this meeting.
Thank you. Now, moving on to item number 5 then, declarations of contact. Do any members have any declarations of contact they wish to make? Councillor Shepherd.
Councillor Evans, in regard to this item.
Yes, Councillor Evans, on this matter. Moving on then, that brings us to our item that we have. So we only have one item on the agenda tonight, so I'll ask without further ado, Claire, if you'd like to start us off on that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This is an outline application for up to 2 residential dwellings with all matters reserved. This means that the application is to establish whether the principle of up to 2 dwellings is acceptable on the site. It is being reported to committee at the request of Councillor Evans. A petition of support has been received. In terms of the principle of development, the site is within the defined settlement boundary and would be considered as sustainable given the location of the site in relation to local transport links and being within fairly close proximity to Bedworth town centre. The proposed dwellings would be located on an overgrown piece of land located to the rear of a row of residential properties on the Nuneaton Road. An application for permission to build an apartment block for 8 units has been approved opposite the site. So that's That's in there. And work has commenced on that site. The proposed dwellings would have no real road frontage of either Nuneaton Road or Joseph Luckman Road, although an improved access road is proposed as part of the developments to the south of the site. It is considered that the key difference between this application and others within the locality, which have been granted permission, is that the other applications were for apartment blocks. This proposal would be for up to 2 dwellings on backland, and this would not be considered to be a cohesive group. It would appear at odds with the street scene, as it does not bear any real relationship with the existing pattern of development. In relation to residential amenity, the site is quite constrained, with only a depth of 14.9 metres. Although no layout plans have been provided at this stage, as it's an outline application and layout is not being considered, there are concerns that there would not be sufficient space within the constraints of the site to provide adequate internal and external space. The size of the site, combined with the need for the plot to also accommodate 2 parking spaces, would mean that it's very likely that there would have to be a compromise made to either the outdoor amenity space, the size of the dwellings, or the number of car parking spaces proposed. This would not be in accordance with the Sustainable Design and Construction SPD, and in turn would impact the amenity of future occupiers of the dwellings. Turning to visual amenity, no details of the appearance, landscaping, layout or scale have been submitted at this stage. However, as the principle of residential development on this site is unacceptable, the site would be considered to be backland development, and this would have a negative impact on the visual amenity of the street scene. The pattern of development within the Nuneaton Road and Joseph Luckman Road is quite mixed. The Nuneaton Road is mixed in terms of style and age of dwellings. There are both existing apartments and new apartments being constructed, plus 3 and 2-storey terraces, 2-storey semi-detached and detached properties. Joseph Luckman Road is somewhat more uniform, with 2-storey semi-detached and terrace dwellings which appear more uniform in character, style and age. Officers consider that the erection of up to 2 dwellings on this site would constitute backland development which would fail to integrate within the pattern of development to the detriment of the street scene and visual amenities of the area. The dwellings would not relate well to the existing pattern of development on either Nuneaton Road or Joseph Luckman Road, given the position of the site and the proposal for just up to 2 dwellings. Access has not been considered formally as part of this application. However, Highways have been consulted and have raised an objection. Their main point of objection is due to the access to the site from Nuneaton Road. The access is not considered to be suitable for the intensification of use. Also, suitable turning facilities would be required to allow larger vehicles to service the site. The constraints of the site would mean that there is not sufficient space for larger vehicles to be able to turn around within the site and re-enter the highway in a forward gear. This would mean that such vehicles would either have to reverse down the access road or turn around within third-party land, which is outside of the application site. Highways have confirmed that they would not be willing to support either of these proposals, as there should be sufficient space within the site for vehicles to appropriately turn around, but this cannot be achieved. They also object as there is insufficient space for more refuse and recycling bins to be placed near Nuneaton Road. In addition, the constraints on the site may mean that off-street parking spaces may be difficult to provide. For these reasons, the development is considered to have a severe impact on highway safety, which cannot be addressed within the application site boundary or the highway extent. The applicant has employed a highways consultant who has responded to the latest highways objections as detailed on the agenda. To date, no response has been received from Highways on that information. However, it is assumed that the objection points which have been raised remain outstanding. The access is considered unsuitable for intensification of use, the lack of space for turning of vehicles, the lack of bin storage, and weighs significantly against the proposal and would have a severe impact on highway safety. There are no objections in relation to flooding and drainage, contamination and land stability or ecology. The recommendation is therefore refusal, as the proposed development would constitute backland development, which would detract from the visual amenity of the area and would also have a severe impact on highway safety. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. I have two speakers on this matter, and I'll go to the first of those now, which is Councillor Evans. So, Councillor Evans, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay, Chair?
Yeah, we can hear you. Is everyone hearing Councillor Evans? Yeah, if you do it a little bit louder, Councillor Evans, just so the recording will pick it up.
Right. Okay. Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm speaking to you this evening in favour of the planning application that's been submitted by Mr. Bennett. I note on your packs that the officer recommendation is one of refusal, and I would ask that members of the committee vote down this recommendation and approve the application in its entirety. This is an interesting application in that it has received no objections from local residents. Indeed, I've been contacted by residents confused as to why the council is wanting to prevent this application from going through. Mr. Bennett wishes to build 2 dwellings on a brownfield site that has been derelict for over 20 years. The site is a hotspot for antisocial behaviour and drug use, and residents have been asking for housing on this land literally for years. The NPPF states that there should be a presumption in favour of sustainable development, and this is very much sustainable development in my opinion. Warwickshire Highways are stating that they have concerns about access to this site from the Nuneaton Road. However, 2 new developments that have been built or approved directly opposite this land with the same access didn't receive any objections from Highways. So I'm really confused as to why they've taken this decision, and I think it's another example of Warwickshire Highways not carrying out effective assessments prior to responding to applications. Very simply, as the ward member, I do not believe there would be any problems with access to this site. The officer's report also highlights concerns about whether the dwellings would be in keeping with the local area. Well, again, as the ward member, I absolutely believe they would, and it would be in keep with what's being approved directly opposite. And I think by the council's comments in the report, it's effectively endorsing the land going back to a jungle, which it was just a few weeks ago before Mr. Bennett brought this land. The Borough Council maintains a 5-year housing land supply, but this is only forecasted to be 5.77 years. We should be welcoming with open arms any application that comes forward to build housing on a derelict brownfield piece of land, which literally serves no purpose to local residents. Mr. Bennett has a really good track record of building high quality homes using local workers. Indeed, the council itself, through NABSAL, actually has brought properties through Mr. Bennett in the past. If the council refuses this application, I believe Mr. Bennett would have absolutely every right to refer this to the planning inspectorate, and for what it's worth, he would have my absolute support, and I believe essentially the inspectorate would probably award costs to the council. We shouldn't be NIMBYs. We should support applications which are positive on brownfield sites and are in the interest of the local community. If members of the committee are minded to refusing this application, then I would ask for a deferral in order for the committee to conduct a site visit beforehand. Thank you very much, Chair.
Could I just ask now, do any members have any points of clarification they would like to seek from Councillor Evans or anything that he's said? Okay, all right. I'm not seeing any hands up, Councillor Evans. So if you just want to stay there for a moment, we'll go to Mr. Bennett. So, Mr. Bennett, you're allowed 3 minutes to make your statement. So if you just press the large button and then begin when you're...
I bought the land facing, and there was 23 garages on the land. I got planning permission for 8 flats with 8 car spaces. So really, I've got rid of 14 car spaces, be building the flats and only having 8 going up and down that access, whereas it used to be 22 night and day. Now also, the Cricketers Arms has been demolished, and they used to have cars parked all the way down there because the cricketers had no car parking, as you might know, you know. But that's been done away with now, and they're building flats. Now, the piece opposite, where I'm asking for this planning for now, the council, 11, 12 years ago, put a big green fence around it. I know because I bought the land off the Crown, because someone must have died and left it intestate, whatever they call it. I bought it, and there was a charge of £10,500 or something, which I had to pay the council to get the charge took off the land, so I could develop it. I'm using it at the moment as car parking. I've got 6, 7 cars on there, vans, pickup trucks, a lot, and I've no problem go up and down there all day long. It's wide enough for cars to pass each other. So Tony Burrows, I don't know what's wrong with the man. You can't get hold of him. He won't answer an email. I paid £2,000 for this consultancy report, and he didn't reply to that. He didn't reply to the consultant people. He doesn't reply to my architect. I don't think he even replies to the planners, to tell you the truth, at times. So I'm just baffled. I'm really baffled why this can go on like this. One man is just riding roughshod over everyone. And I don't understand it. I really don't. Like I say, I wanted two bungalows for the disabled, for rental. And I was willing to ask the council if they wanted them, which I would do. They bought 6 off me on Orchard Street, a row of 6 houses. They said, the best houses they'd seen, they said, money-wise, etc. So I build good houses, all in Bedworth. Use Bedworth shops, Bedworth people, Nuneaton people, everything. And it's my last one as well. I'm 70 now, I want to retire. I've had enough. And that's it, really.
Okay, so I'd just like to ask any members, does anyone require any points of clarification? Yeah, Councillor Cape.
Planning committees now. I understand the concept of backland development, which we have refused in specific areas, which were clearly in somebody's backyard. For me, just by having a look at the schematic there and the pictures, I don't feel, I might be my ignorance, but I don't feel that's backland development, because it's not the rear of somebody's property. It's actually going to be fronting on property that's already going to be built. And so I have got a problem with that terminology on the recommendation. So if somebody could perhaps educate me a bit as to why that is backland when it doesn't seem so to me.
Okay, thank you. Classified it as backland.
Yep. Backland development doesn't necessarily mean developing in somebody's back garden. Backland development is a term that planners use within planning guidance that basically means it's a development that's not in keeping with the existing pattern of development. It could be an isolated development, not creating a group on its cohesive group on its own, and a site of 2 dwellings wouldn't normally create that cohesiveness on its own. I understand your point about being opposite the development site of an apartment block, but looking at planning legislation and planning guidance and our policies, we would say the apartment blocks are slightly different. They're creating that group on their own. There's 8 dwellings in that block, whereas this is slightly different. It doesn't also relate well to properties on Joseph Luckman Road. It doesn't follow that pattern of development along Joseph Luckman Road. And again, it's located behind the main existing pattern development along the Nuneaton Road.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other points for clarification? That's all I'm after at this point, just clarification. No? Okay, so the proposal in front of us then is to recommend to refuse planning permission for reasons as printed. So for purpose of discussion, do I have a proposer? Okay, Councillor Hartshorn, and a seconder, Councillor Hammersley. Thank you. Okay, so I'll now open the floor to any members. Okay, Councillor Hartshorn.
Thank you, Chair. I'm thinking back to I think it was 3 weeks ago, where we conducted a site visit onto Copsewood Avenue. Now, I can, to some degree, understand the apprehension of the properties not being in keeping with existing development, but the properties that we saw when we were down on Copsewood Avenue, very, very different, even within the space of those over the road. I don't know if you remember the bungalow that was opposite the property in question. So I feel that saying that it wouldn't be in keeping when in the borough we already have great variation even on the same streets, I feel that's kind of not a sufficient argument to satisfy my mind that would potentially make me agree with the recommendation.
Yes. Councillor Green.
The site today, and I'm afraid I don't agree that it clashes with the visual amenity. On Nuneaton Road there is a mixture of buildings, and I think the development would actually enhance that area. Actually, it's a derelict bit of land. At peak times I drove into the site and out of the site without any issue whatsoever.
I actually live in the area of this development or proposed development. I've had no contact with the gentleman, but I've walked there many times when the pub was at the end, and like Councillor Evans has said, I can't see any problem with getting up and down that particular road to get to this site. I can't see what two cars, the difference it's going to make with two extra cars on that development, and I can't see what difference it's going to make getting out onto Nuneaton Road. So I don't agree with it either, to be fair. Thank you.
Has actually anybody been out and done any measurements for refuse trucks or anything to see whether they can turn? Yeah.
I'll come to you. Claire, do you want to?
Highways would normally make a visit as part of their assessment before they feed back to us. We also consult our refuse team as well on the proposals. Whether or not they make a site visit, I'm not quite sure. They would normally go on the plans and assess those on that basis.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett, you seem to think you could shed a bit of light on this one for us.
Yeah, which is 8 houses, flats, sorry. In there, I've had to do a refuse area so that the bin men can come down, pick the bins up and empty them and go back out again. So surely, if they can pick the bins up for there, they can pick the bins up straight facing for there, no problems.
Okay, does that clarify your question, Councillor?
Obviously the bin men could reverse up and then come out forward facing, so I was just trying to picture of whether the council were thinking that they'd need to go up front, turn around and then come back out. So I was just trying to think of, for that objection, where was the logic behind it?
Would be nice if I could see the actual plan to view what you are going to build there to help me assess if it's suitable. Although it is a derelict piece of ground, people dump, etc., etc. But the outline stage, without a plan to show the proposed layout or scale of the dwellings, it's not possible to determine whether the minimum space standards could be met. So I agree with, yes, it'd be nice to see something built there, but I would also like to see and determine the plan to show the layout of the properties. That would really help.
It's an outline
It's
planning
yes.
permission, so we're not going to get that detail at this point in time.
At
That
the moment.
level of detail would come later at another
Yeah.
stage, and then I'm guessing this would then come before us again,
Yeah.
where we'll be able to then sort of weigh it up. So at this moment in time, we're just talking really about the principle.
Okay, so in principle, I'm agreeing with what the proposal is.
The point I think the point that Claire is making in terms of this being an outline is that she's not convinced that a reserved matters application could come in that would satisfy the standards that have been set by this council. So in granting an outline approval, you could very well then be causing a problem further down the road in terms of actually having a scheme that is actually deliverable within standard. And you will then be faced with the dilemma, do you approve a substandard reserved matters application or do you refuse it? So I think you need to think very carefully about that particular point, because that is probably the most fundamental point in terms of the reasons for refusal that you have before you today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Claire, don't you got anything you want to add to that, or are you okay?
No, that's yeah,
Okay.
exactly what Phil said.
Yeah, so I mean, again, there's some more information there in terms of, you know, things that we need to consider. So, you know, on prima facie sort of evidence, it kind of looks like a fairly simple thing, but as we can see, you know, will it cause issues further down the line for us? Councillor Markham.
If we were minded to approve this today, and then the plan comes in for 2 bungalows or whatever it happens to be, which doesn't fit in with our the way that we do it at this council, so we could actually say, well, that doesn't fit in, you can only have 1 bungalow. So are we able to do that?
This outline is for up to 2 dwellings. So a future reserve matters, which is what the details, could come in with 1, it could come in with 2, we just don't know. But all you could consider is the application in front of you at that time.
Just to follow on from that then, so we couldn't condition 1 with the possibility of a second?
Couldn't. No.
Okay, any other members? No? Okay, so I'll go to the vote in that case then. All those in favour of a proposal to refuse planning permission? Okay, all those against? Abstentions? Okay, so that is carried. Thank you. Okay, so being no other business on tonight's agenda, I now bring this meeting to a close. Thank you very much to everyone for your attendance.